Hello everyone, so welcome again to the NextTS rule course. And today we are going to our 7th class, which is creating the loading and the create component. The load component is basically a loading symbol that will appear while we are loading our data that will be shown on the table. And also the create component, which will be the form. If you want to create a new customer, we will have a form for this. So we are going to create a component for this too. So basically, first of all, let's create first the loading component. So we are basically going to components. We already have this folder, and we are going to create a new file that is called loading.tsx. And basically, we are going to import React loading, which is already defined in our dependencies. React loading, great. And then I will import everything as React from React. Why we are going to use that component? Imagine that when we reload our page, it might be that we don't have the data already loaded. So the page will be loaded, but it will be already loaded, but the data no. So instead the page is loading the data, we show the loading symbols. And when everything's good to go, when I have all the data, I just kick out the loading symbol and place the table. So this will look better. This will give a flow and a more user experience, UX and UI to the user that is using this application. This is very important to give feedback to the user. So we are going to create a function component. This function component will be really simple. It will return a JSX element as all the other components will return, and then we are going to put the return scope, the return scope of this component. We are just going to create a single div here. This div will have a class name, which we are going to create a CSS class now, loading, which is for this is kind of the wrapper of this, and then just React loading. And we are going to put some attributes. The type, it will be Spin. If you go to the documentation of that library, you can find all the different kinds of loaders that you have. But for now, we are going to use Spin. And we are going to use color. We are going to use that. Let's check a color. Let's use that color here, which is blue. I have this defined here. This color here, which is a blue color. Okay, I save it in here. I have to export default loading. Great, everything's good. I will just save this file. Remember that if you are using Visual Studio Code, you need to save the file. While in another IDEs, you don't need to save it. And now I will npm run linked for just formatting this. We don't have any formatting now at all, but I'm used to do this. So now we are good to add, let's first create a CSS class for this. So let's go to the styles.css in the root path of the project, and in the end of the file, let's add a new style called the loading and the curly braces, and then there will be a margin top just to separate this from the header of the table, and with 10 pixels only. Then a display that will be flex. We are going to use flexbox here, and just find content to center. I'm doing this using flexbox just to make sure that my loading component will be shown in the middle of the page, in the middle of the table when the content haven't loaded yet. So okay, now I have the CSS. Now I can go to our index component. And remember that we already was able to see this in the last class. So I have loading, and then I can go here, and it's here that we basically going to insert this. We are going to refactor this and create a data, and say that this data is sample customer data, and I will put this as data. And like this doesn't matter. But now, okay, and now I'm going to insert the loading component here, because here is where I put each of the rows of the table. But why I don't have the data, instead of showing the rows, I will show a loading component. So what I'm going to do here, it is instead of, because I changed the name to data, and basically what I'm going to do, it is, I will put data here, and I will put a condition. And then the first thing will be the load. If I have the data, will be the normal rows. And if I don't have the data, it will be here the loading component. I will import the loading here up above. I will import here. I will import loading from components, loading. Okay, everything is good here. And then here, I will put the React. Remember that we had in the last class. It will be the same thing that we have in the last class. So you can just copy and paste here. Okay, everything's good. Now, if we run the application, I will just format this, basically. Just let's summarize for if you haven't understood what I did here. Is basically I said that this data is my sample customer data. Basically, as I'm using dummy data, the loading will not appear because this data is loaded automatically and at the same time. But what I'm doing here is that I'm doing a conditional with the data, and if it is true that I have the data, I will show the thing that I will display all of the rows of the table, with the component that we created in the last class, which is called a data row. If not, I'm going to put our loading component, which was the component that we just have created. Okay, so now we are good to go finally to our form component, which is big and it might take a little bit of time. That's why I say that this is one of the longest class of the course, but is one of the most important too. So here on the pages, let's first run this and then run dev. If we run this guy here, is already in use. Who is using this? This guy, I was using in another application, I don't know. Let's just kill, I had another terminals here. I will just run npm run dev. Okay, everything. So let's go to browser. I will go to the browser here. And let's wait until everything shows up to us. We wouldn't be able to see our loading component because we are using dummy data. Everything is very, very fast. But let's go to our form. Remember that NextJS recognizes all the components and things that you insert inside the pages directory. So if I create a new folder, I will create a new folder under pages that is called create. That is called customers, actually. Customers. I will create a new one. We can see that I created a customers one. So if I create a file inside customers, I will basically be able to access this through here. I will put /customers because Next automatically do this for us. We don't need to configure this like in another frameworks. So we are going to create a file, call it create.tsx, and here is where it's going to be our form. And this is a big component, but it's a very important component. So I'm going to import React, and now use state from React, which is from React hooks. State from React, okay, and then I'm going to import the layout component that we created in one of the first classes, that is the surrounding component of our application. And then in components, I will go layout here. Great. and then I will import the iCustomer interface. Great. From this file here, basically, it will be interfaces. Great, everything is good too. I will import also, we are going to use that. I'm going to present you guys to this library here that is called, it is one of the dependencies, is already defined in dependencies, and probably you have already installed that when you execute any npm install, but it's React hook form. React hook form. It is basically a hook for your form. When someone submits a form, your component, there is a function that will be triggered under your component. So we are going to start creating our function component that is called create. It won't receive nothing, it will just deliver a JSX element. And then here, before creating return here, I will already create this, but before creating this, we will need to define some constants and also state of the thing. I will use error message. I will create now, I will use state from React, which is basically define hooks for a function component. I will create an error message and set error message. That is the message that will be shown if something wrong happens. Use state. And as I'm using TypeScript, I need to tell what is the type of those error message and set error message, which is a function. And then I will create another one, I will call this guy here that is called use form, which is for creating the hooks for the form that we are going to create. And I need to pass the type of the data that I will manipulate in my form, which is the customer. And this guy actually it returns some guys to me, which is this handle submit, also register, and also error. I will explain each of one of them. This handle submit is basically the guy that you call when someone clicks on the confirm to create the user, to submit the user. So we are going to create a function here, call it onSubmit, which will be triggered when the user finalizes to fill all the form. And we are going to use handle submit that we just have collected here up above. And we are going to use this time an arrow function notation. And this, just remember, this is a sync function, is a synchronous function. And then this function will receive from the rooks the iCustomer data that the user typed on the form, which is the new user that I want to create. So basically here, what I'm going to do, it is, if there is an error message, I will set error message here as like this. We are not going to use this, it's just for the next classes. And as we don't have the mechanism to effectively saving this data yet, we are just going to console log this. Okay, so everything's good to go. We just need to go to our return now, to our return component. And now we can start the JSX part. And this is a pretty big one, but we are going to beat it. So we'll be layout, as all you guys know. And then here it will be h1 tag that will be create customer. And then below, let's insert another div here, one line. And then we are going to start our form. I'm using the normal form, a tag from HTML. And I'm going to, the only thing that I need to put here is that onSubmit, which is an event, HTML native event. I need to put the function that I created here, this one. So when the user submits the form, it will be triggered, this function will be triggered, and then I can save the information that is inside the form. I will create a label here, let's create the first name label first. It will be first name, and then I will create an input HTML field so the user can input a name for the user. Here I will need to put some attributes, which will be, as we want to create, we want to add to the user a name. This will be a test input. The name will be first name. This name here, it is an attribute required for each of the attribute that we are trying to fill within iCustomer class. So we need to put plus first name. Placeholder will be, it is what is placed to help the user to know what he needs to place in this. And then we need to place a reference here, which will be, we are going to use the register that we just collected up. And we are going to do a require. This is only for validation of the form. In the case someone tries to submit the form without putting the first name, this error will appear. Okay, so everything is good to go here. Everything is good to go. We have insert. It just need, why this guy is complaining. Okay, everything is good. Now we can go to errors. So this is the input, and if I have some kind of errors, I also will create this another part here, which will be errors dot first name. And if there is an error with the first name, this message will appear. So it will be a span. The role will be an alert, because which means that the content inside the span will be shown as an error, and the class name that we are going to create will be an error. Okay, everything is good to go, and then we are going to just put errors dot first name dot message. Okay, everything is good to go here. We finalize the input for first name, and then now we are going to create a new div. We are going to create a new. Just one thing that I think that is better to do here is after the form, let's surround here this with a div, just to separate each of the inputs of the form. So I will put this guy here, and this guy will be here inside. Now let's go to the next one, to the next field, which is telephone, which is basically the same thing too. We are going to just copy this one here and switch this to telephone. This will be here. It will be telephone. Everything is a string too. We don't need to, and we are not doing another mechanism of validation. We can just replace everything. Here will be, I would just need to put an example here. Will be 1, 2, 3, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then here I can put this one, register. The ref will be only register actually, because this is not effectively required. And then here will be the errors, telephone and telephone. Okay, and now we are good to go to the last one, which is credit card. And will be credit card number, and then this will be credit card. The placeholder will be, for example, this one. It can be any number that you want. And then here I will just copy credit card and replace here again. Great. So now we just need to create another div, which will represent our submit button. So another div here down below, and I will create this. We'll have a class name of submit that we are going to create in a while. in the CSS part, and there is going to be a button here, and this button will be of type submit, and the class name will be submit button. Okay, everything is good, and here I will put the test of that button, which will be just create. Okay, everything is good to go. We have form here, and then what I'm going to do here, I just need to put the last part, which is the overall error message. I will need to put this after the form. So imagine that I have an error when I submit. As I have errors for each of the inputs, I need to have another error for the overall form. Like imagine that I lost contact with my server, so I can put to the user here in the last next to the button of creating a new customer, I can put this overall error. So I will create a new guy here, and I will put error message. Which is the error message from the state of the component, and not the error from the React root form. Those are two different kinds of errors. I will use error message. If error message exists, I will put this one. This is basically a condition that I'm creating here, and I will put this. I will put a paragraph. I'll put a paragraph, and the role will be alert to show everything in red, and then the class name, the class name will be error message, and then finally the error message here. Okay, everything's good to go. I'm going to save here and run npm run lint. So our file is going to be formatted. Now finally we have created our form component. It was almost 100 lines. Cheers everyone that followed me until this point. And export default create. Now we have finalized this guy here. And finally, just one thing that we need to do actually now, it is doing the CSS class of that thing. So let's go to CSS here on the styles, and I'm going to create all these styles now, which is the last part of this class. So there are a lot of styles actually. I'm going to, just to don't lose time, I'm going to copy all those styles. We can grab all those styles down below here in the description, and also in the branch that represents this class, which is the branch 7. If you don't have a link to the class, also you can grab here down below in the description of that video. And basically I'm going to paste this so we will not lose time, but I will explain a little bit about them. This one I'm just decorating the form HTML tag and put in background color and just some attributes. I'm just putting some font size and weight on the label HTML component, and then the input I'm adding some border radius and margin. The submit custom class is for our button, for just test line in the right, and do a margin top, and then the submit button will be a little bit blue. The error message will be ready, and the error I will put a margin button on it. So everything is good too. I will save it. I will save index.ts too. Okay, everything's good here. And now I'm going to run my application, and we are going to access our form finally. So let's run npm run dev. It might take a little bit for finalize all the components. But here we are going to now finally see our form that we just have created. So now, as we can see, we can go to the table here that we have just created in the 6th class, and we finally, if we click here, we are going to go to our form. So we have finalized our form. We can put whatever we want here. Unfortunately, we still don't have the information. We can check here for the errors. First name is required, last name is required. Okay, those ones are not required. Remember, because we inserted this guy here in here on the register, we just passed the object register, but we haven't sent another message, error message. So our form is created finally, and from the next classes, this class I created the entire component just for testing after this, just for the sake that this is a big component. But in the next class, what we are going to do is basically execute an application and at the same time coding, which I think is a better methodology. But this one it was because it was a huge component at all. But see you guys in the next class. This was an awesome class. It was a pleasure to be with you guys. And the class 8, it is about HTTP fetch and mocks. So we are going to start to create mocks for HTTP calls. As we have most of the components of the application already done, we are going to work on the HTTP part of the application for doing HTTP requests. So thanks a lot, everyone, and see you guys in the next class.